Have you ever heard that writing is 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration? What if I told you that writing could be 98% inspiration? Welcome to Intuitive Writer. I'm your host, Camille Chan. I'm here to show you how you can tap into inspiration and make it a part of your everyday writing practice. Say goodbye to those days of perspiring over the keyboard and hello to inspiration. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Intuitive Writer podcast. I'm your host, Camille Chan. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I am excited to share today's episode. Over the last couple weeks, we've talked a lot about what it means to write with your intuition and be an intuitive writer. So today I'm going to share my origin story with you. I'm going to share the story of how I went from an unconscious creator to a fully conscious intuitive writer. The story started a few years ago. I was on what I would describe as a self-help crusade. I was neck deep in trying to expand myself and grow as a person. And you name the self-help guru, and I probably had some form of contact with that person. Tony Robbins, Jen Sincero, Dean Graziosi, podcasts, books, webinars, CDs, you name it, I did it. And in the midst of all this, I was corresponding with one of my writing buddies in Australia, and she also was into some of the same stuff that I was into. And she said, "Hey, have you ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?" I was like, "Oh no, I hadn't read that." And I love Elizabeth Gilbert. I read her book, Eat, Pray, Love. A lot of you probably either read it or seen the movie, and I loved it. So when she recommended the book, I thought, oh, okay, I'll go pick it up. It's a nonfiction title, and it's Elizabeth Gilbert's, it's about a lot of things, but mostly it's about her relationship with creativity and her process and the things that she's discovered over her lifetime of being a creative person. It's really a beautiful work, so I definitely recommend it. But this is the book that opens the rabbit hole for me, that completely changed everything, changed my perspective, changed my trajectory as a creator. And so I'm going to read you the single paragraph that flipped me inside out. There's a lot of really interesting things in the book, but it was really just this one single paragraph that opened my mind up. And here it is. I believe that our planet is inhabited not only by animals and plants and bacteria and viruses, but also by ideas. Ideas are a disembodied, energetic life form. They are completely separate from us, but capable of interacting with us, albeit strangely. Ideas have no material body, but they do have consciousness, and they most certainly have will. Ideas are driven by a single impulse to be made manifest. And the only way an idea can be made manifest in our world is through collaboration with a human partner. This was the first time I'd ever been presented with the concept that my creativity came from a source outside of myself. All of the professional training that I'd received in college and other classes had all led me to believe that creativity came from within. And that is partially true. I am very creative, and most people are creative on some level. But this was the first time I'd ever been faced with the concept that maybe there was more to it, that maybe when I sat down at the computer, that maybe I wasn't by myself, that maybe I was actually co-creating with this energy that was out there. So my self-help crusade turned into a spirituality crusade. I was absolutely 112% hell-bent on discovering whether or not this was true, whether or not there really was energy and things outside of me that wanted to work with me and create with me and be made manifest in the world. So this led me to books, classes, podcasts, online forums, webinars, all centered around spirituality and intuitive development. Yeah, you name it, I probably delved into it at some point on some level in this journey. And one of the things that kept coming back, no matter what modality I was studying, was this concept of meditation. Now, I have to tell you, I was never a fan of meditation. I'm not a person that's very good at sitting still. I'm very busy, both physically and up here in my brain. Something's always moving. I had dabbled in meditation a little bit in college, and I usually ended up passed out on the floor of the place where I would go, or I would just get bored because I wasn't moving, I wasn't doing something. So I'd never really taken to meditation, and I never really thought I was a person who liked to meditate. But I came across it often enough in all of the things that I was studying on this spirituality crusade. I was like, okay, I guess I gotta try it. So I threw myself into it head first every day. I practiced some form of meditation, and again, I bought different books on the subject. I tried different apps, different classes, just trying to figure out how to do it. And I really went into it. There's a lot of reasons that you can meditate. I really went into it with the purpose of discovering if there was other stuff out there, whether or not the world that I saw with my eyeballs was it, or if there was more to it. And I really wanted to discover these energies that I thought might be co-creating with me. So that was the intention that I set as I went into these meditations. And it took a while. It took a few months before things really started to shift for me. But they did start to shift. And I've learned through this process that I actually have a very active inner eye, third eye, and I can see into the spirit realm. And that was the piece that started to activate first. And I started seeing beings that I couldn't see them in the room with me, but I could see them when I dropped into the meditation. They would appear before me. And I learned through this work that most of these were spirit guides. That was what I was making contact with first. And your spirit guides are energies that are here to help you with different tasks in your life. And one of the very first guides that I made contact with, I named him Coach. He had light blonde hair. He's British, spoke with a British accent, and he was often barefoot, and he'd wear like just slacks or jeans, and I would see him, and at first you're like, you kind of wonder if you're making it up, because as a creative person, like, I have a very vivid imagination, but he kept showing up, and it was very odd that he would speak to me in a British accent. So I'm like, maybe he's really there. So I kind of went with it. And one thing to note is that as you start to make connection with the universe, it's very subtle. It's not like it is in the movies where you're suddenly ejected from the material plane and thrust somewhere violently, in a completely different situation. It's very subtle, and it's very easy to mistake it as a daydream or as a random thought. So that I didn't have 100% confidence that Coach, this spirit guide that I was seeing, I wasn't 100% confident that I wasn't completely making him up. Because again, I'm a writer, I make things up, that's what we do. But I really was open to this concept that there were these energies out there that wanted to co-create with me. So I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna trust that he's one of my guides and that he really is speaking to me. So I went with it. And I had a couple of experiences that really cemented the whole truth and the whole relationship for me. The first time it happened, I was in a meditation and Coach was there, and while we were standing there together, he transported me and we went to a desert. And when I looked up, there was a giant pyramid. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I've never felt a deep, profound connection to Egypt. I mean, obviously pyramids are cool. I always thought they were cool, but not much beyond that. So he showed me this pyramid. I'm like, okay. I didn't really know what it meant. So went about my day, and within the next 24 hours, I was contacted by someone to let me know that I had won an entry into a class taught by a shaman, and that she was teaching a class on the Egyptian chakras. And I'm not the sort of person that goes to Vegas and wins. So I don't really win contests. It was shocking that I actually won a contest, but when I found out that it was on Egyptian chakras and coach had just shown me this pyramid the night before, I was like, oh, okay. Wow, he really is there. I didn't make him up. And he was telling me something really important. He was telling me, hey, this thing is coming into your life and it's coming for a reason, so you need to pay attention. So that was very profound for me, to have one of my first experiences where something that I was experiencing on the spiritual plane actually manifested in reality. So that was pretty cool. And then I had another instance where something similar happened. One of the things that I do on the side is I like to run ultra marathons. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what ultra marathons are, they are stupidly long foot races, like really long. So I was preparing for a 62-mile foot race. And it was a couple days before the race, and coach came to me again, and he showed me the map of the course, which of course I was very familiar with because I'd been poring over it for days. And he circled a certain section in red, and he showed it to me. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know what it meant. But when I showed up on the race course, I was very aware in my brain of that part of the course. And I'd convinced myself that I was going to fall on that course, because that happens a lot. I'll trip on roots and stuff and I fall, and it's terrible. I hate falling. So I thought, oh, maybe coach is giving me a heads up that I'm going to fall. And this particular course was a loop course. It was like there are 20-mile loops. So I was going to go over this particular section of the course 3 times. So of course I was like hyper alert when I was going through this section, like really watching. It was in the middle of the desert, so I didn't really have roots so much, but there were lots of rocks and there were lots of cactuses. So then I kind of in my head was worried about falling into a cactus. But to make a long story short, I didn't fall. But what happened is I got sick, which does happen sometimes when you're running a long way. Your stomach just revolts. And I lost my stomach. I started throwing up uncontrollably. And I threw up for miles and miles. And it started in that section of the course that he'd shown me. And looking back on it now, I realize he was giving me a warning, like, hey, if you're going to do this, it's not going to be pleasant. And he was right. It was hard. I cried. I threw up and cried for several hours until I finally got to the finish line. It took me just under 19 hours to go 62 miles. But again, it was another experience in my life where something that I experienced in meditation on the spiritual plane actually manifested in reality. And by this point, I'd had enough other small experiences and small interactions with the universe that I knew without a doubt that there was a heck of a lot more out there in the world than just what I could see with my eyes or touch with my hands or taste with my mouth, that there's all these other energies, there's all this stuff out there that we can't see. And so much of it is here to work with us, to help us accomplish certain things, or like we're talking about with writing, it's here to co-create with us and to be on this journey with us. So I have so much gratitude to my guide coach for helping me really surrender to this new truth and embrace it and understand that I really have intuition and it's something that I could activate and use on a regular basis, and that the spirit world wanted to co-create with me and communicate with me and help me every day through my life. So once I had this proof that intuition was real and that I could activate it and use it to communicate with the universe, that knowledge and that confidence really served to strengthen it. And it started working all the time. Felt activated all the time. And I had my first experience with conscious creation. It was the first time where when I sat down to work on a book, I was consciously aware that I wasn't alone. And what stepped forward for this particular book was a character. So I write many things, but what I'm really into at the moment is end of the world zombie apocalypse. Super fun, right? And so the character that stepped forward was a middle-aged soldier named Ben. And what's interesting is I never even saw him coming. I thought the story was going to be from the point of view of somebody else in the series. So I was really surprised when I sat down and somebody else started coming out of my fingertips. I was like, okay. But like I said, I'd been working on my intuition, and I knew for a fact that the universe wanted to co-create with me, and this was the energy that wanted to come through. So I was on board. Here he was. Let's do it. So I did it. I opened myself up. I let him come through my fingers, and it was really an amazing experience. Sometimes I would be so deep into the work that by the time I came up, I couldn't always even remember what I wrote, just because I was just almost like in a meditative state when I was working, just bringing him through. So not only were my writing sessions with Ben very, very clear and very intense, I would occasionally see him. He'd share things with me. And I have one vivid story to share with you. I was standing in my bedroom. I don't know what I was doing, but just going about my day. And all of a sudden, I was not in my room anymore. I was in Vietnam, and Ben was showing me a scene from his life when he was alive. He was a Vietnam veteran, killed in action, and it's really sad. He had fallen in love with a girl from Vietnam, and of course, when he passed away without ever being able to be a partner and have the love and have that relationship. And that's why he came to me. When he showed up in the book, he showed up as the love interest for my main character, and I had never had any intention of writing a romance. And that's what Ben brought to the table. It was what he needed. So that's what our partnership, our co-creation was about, was him getting the love story that he never got. Sorry, it's a little sad, but yeah, he got the love story that he never got when he was really here. And as an artist, it was really an honor to be able to bring him through and to be able to give him that thing that he was missing, that he wanted so much. Okay, I had to take a quick break there to recover myself. Sometimes it does get intense when the characters come through, but that's the story of Ben, and that was the story of why we co-created together, of our partnership. And he brought soul to my book that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And based on comments and feedbacks I've received from the readers, they all felt him as strongly as I did, which I think is really beautiful. I'm sharing these stories with you today to give you an example of how you can go from being a completely shut down, unconscious creator to a fully aligned, intuitive writer. And you can do it probably more quickly than you would imagine. It's something that everybody can do. And over the last few months, I've been working with my guides, putting together a course for everyone out there that's interested in bringing this intuitive writing practice into their lives. So I will have more information on that soon, but I just wanted to let you know that was something that we were working on. And so we'll have that for you sometime here in the next few months. That wraps up today's episode. And thank you so much for listening and letting me share. And I hope it gives you something that you can use against the backdrop of your own life as you begin to work with your intuition. And if you know of anybody who would appreciate this podcast or this episode, please share with them. Please share on social media. I would greatly appreciate it. Please subscribe. I'm on all major podcast platforms, and I record all these episodes, so they're on YouTube as well. And if any of you want to reach out, I'm on Instagram at Write with Intuition. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And next week, we're going to be talking about writing guides. I talked a little bit about my spirit guide coach today and Ben, and I'm going to share some more on writing guides and what that might look like for you guys. So stay tuned. I'm excited. I will talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Bye.